Hi, everybody. I'm going to be talking about Empower a Child today, and my name is Cheyenne Sobolewski. Empower a Child is a mission organization in East Africa started by Wilson Hannington, and the one I'm going to be talking about is Empower a Child Uganda. And so, most of their business operations kind of take place in Zerobwe, which is a remote village in Uganda. And so myself within Empower a Child, last summer I spent 2 months over this Christmas, New Year's break. I spent 2 weeks, and then this upcoming month and summer, kind of into fall, I'll be spending 5 to 6 months. So I'm going to be talking about three different leaders within Empower a Child. So Wilson Hannington, he's the founder of Empower a Child. He coordinates the head staff. He's really in charge of all the business operations of Empower a Child, and he chose the foundation of Empower a Child. And so he really does a lot with Empower Child, but he also comes to live in California because his wife lives there. And so he does operations from both sides, stateside and in Uganda and East Africa. But I'm more specifically talking about Uganda. He is a Ugandan, but he married an American woman, so now they live in California together with their kids and whatnot. But he lives kind of both on both sides of the world for months at a time and whatnot. And then there's Aunt Sarah. She's the boss woman in Empower Child in Uganda. She makes sure that all the business duties are being done, ensuring that the staff is doing the necessary jobs. She talks to Wilson since he's not always in Uganda. Sometimes he's stateside, so reporting back and forth between them. And then just making sure that his vision is being sought out throughout the operations of Empower Child. And then Ashley. So Ashley is the head of the mission support team. She started off as a volunteer a few years ago and then worked her way up in the organization, and now is the only on staff paid person from like America. So she's the only one that's there currently that's not a Ugandan that's paid. Otherwise, most of us are all volunteers that come. And so she is in charge of everything related to the volunteers, from the initial contact to getting them on the ground to the interview process in between. She oversees the volunteers. She ensures that they're in the right state of mind. So you need to be in the right state of mind to serve, and you have to make sure you're there for the right things and the right reasons. And then so kind of just mentoring to the volunteers while they're there, before, after, all that sort of thing. And so then the different departments of Empower Child, here are a few would be the volunteer, the sponsorship department, the business operation that kind of include like accounting, management, documentation, all the behind the scenes work that I don't know a ton about. And then the Zerobwe team, which is the team that works kind of in the village that dabbles into sponsorship and volunteer and that kind of thing, but they stay on the grounds mostly in Zerobwe, working with the community and the volunteers and just on the projects that are going to be done within the community. And then, so the lines of communication, I would say that they're very, very open. There's daily, weekly, monthly meetings taking place. Conversing with Wilson from stateside and from being in Uganda, a lot of that happens. I would say that not too much group conformity happens just because everybody kind of comes together and is willing to hear each other out, which is super awesome about Empower Child. And so they are willing to listen to us volunteers. They're willing to listen to each other, and it kind of contributes to the overall success of the organization. So an issue that I kind of seen take place was that some of the volunteers were not ready to be in Uganda. We're not ready to be in that third world nation, and we're not ready to serve there. When you're there to serve, you have to be in the right mind state. You have to be there for Christ. You can't be there for any other reason. That's my personal opinion. And so some people just weren't ready to come. They weren't ready for the things that they were going to experience. It's a third world country. It's not first world living. So you have to really be ready to sacrifice those things and really be willing to understand them, not judge them, and just kind of come alongside and love them and be there for what you need to be there for. And so this kind of was an issue that Empower Child faced, but I was able to do a SWOT analysis of this. So some of the strengths of the organization would be the foundation of the company. It's a Christian, non-denominational, nonprofit mission organization. It's a really good base for them. Past volunteer experience. They have a lot of great experiences that they can kind of use to grow in the future and see kind of where they need to work on and whatnot. And then the management team, like I said, because of the open lines of communication, I would say it's a definite strength of the company. A weakness is that neither the Americans or anybody that's coming from a first world nation or from the Ugandan side can't understand the opposite life of living. I can't fully understand the third world life living, and they can't fully understand the first world nation living. And so that's kind of a weakness, but we kind of try to work on that together. So opportunities, obviously, there's always growth. There's always room for growth. There's always opportunity to be better in the future. A threat would be if they don't get this problem with the volunteers not being ready to come, and if there's kind of bad negative feelings towards that, it can make the reputation of the company not so reputable, and it's just not something that anybody wants to see. And so it's a threat because if there isn't volunteers coming in, there's not money for the projects to take place, because that is how the projects take place, is by the volunteers paying to come. And so some possible solutions. Here were just a few, but I'll dive into them and more in the next slide. So stop sending the volunteers. Well, this might not be the best way to solve our problem, just because that would stop the basis of Empower Child. They wouldn't be volunteering international, which would kind of stop the main point. To increase orientation, well, this would allow for more understanding on both parts of the first world nation people before coming to the third world country. Working with past volunteers, well, this can allow for them to kind of bring their feedback into it and find out what needs to be worked on and what not. And then reoccurring on the ground conversation with the long-term volunteers. This would ensure that just the volunteers that are there for longer, that they're always in the right state of mind, and that they haven't lost it, that they're just always ready to serve. So the solution, it's a number of different steps. It's talking with the volunteers, getting their input on the issues, increasing the amount of stateside training just so that people are ready to come, increasing on-the-ground orientation when you get there, maybe working with more First World Nation volunteers and whatnot, just because, like I said, Ashley is the only one. So having more people to kind of comprehend that, just because there is a lot of volunteers, it's a lot of work on Ashley, so having more. Again, working with past volunteers, more interviews within the volunteers, just making sure that they're really there for the right reasons. And then the reoccurring ground conversation. So when they're on the ground, making sure that they're always in the right mental state to be volunteering and serving. And then so implementing, it's going to be an ongoing thing. You can't just do it all at once, but it's kind of ongoing. It's going to be cultural training. It's assessing how Empower Child goes about their business operations, and then kind of just working to make sure that's always kind of the best and growing as a company, and conducting return interviews. So when people get back home, conducting interviews to make sure that their stay was good and that they're always in the right state of mind. Holding maybe a yearly discussion, I think, would be really, really beneficial to see what did those volunteers from the past year think, where were ways that Empower could have gotten better. This also gives people that maybe volunteered early in their year maybe some more time to think. How was it after they got back home for a while? Did they see things that they thought of could have been changed that they didn't think of before? And I think that just kind of goes for over a number of months. It can happen over time. And so that was kind of my plan, just to help Empower with the issue of not volunteers not being ready. So it's kind of an ongoing, it's cultural training. It's looking at the way operations are being done. It's conducting interviews once they get back home, and then lastly, holding those yearly discussions. So overall, I thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope you have a great day. Yep.